Hi, Professor Race here to talk about the Pronoun-Antecedent Agreement error, often marked as P/A, AGR, and sometimes just referred to as pronoun agreement error. Okay, just a brief reminder on pronouns and what they are. Remember, they take the place of nouns. In fact, the word pronoun means for a noun. Here is a list of the personal pronouns, the first person pronouns, I, me, mine, and so on, the second person pronouns, and the third person singular pronouns and third person plural pronouns. Now, pronouns, as you know, take the place of nouns and keep us from unnecessarily repeating words in writing. So if we didn't have pronouns, we'd say things like this: Eddie left Eddie's camera on the bus when Eddie traveled to Tulsa to visit Eddie's sister, which is extremely cumbersome, repetitive, and monotonous. Thank goodness for pronouns which allow us to substitute pronouns in place of the nouns so that we have a much smoother sentence. Now let's talk about pronouns and antecedents. The word the pronoun replaces or refers to is called the antecedent of the pronoun. So, let's take a look at an example. What are the antecedents of these pronouns? Marie showed me her antique wedding band. Here's the pronoun her. Now, what is its antecedent? Marie. Here's the antecedent for the pronoun her, because Marie is the word that her refers back to or takes the place of. Students enrolled in the art class must provide their own supplies. What is the antecedent for their? The answer is students. Students is the antecedent because it is the word that their is referring back to or taking the place of in this sentence. Now, let's talk about the rule of pronoun-antecedent agreement. The rule states a pronoun must agree in number with the word or words that it replaces. So, if the antecedent is singular, the pronoun that refers to it must also be singular. As in this sentence, Karen walked her horse around the track. Her has to be a singular pronoun because Karen is a singular feminine antecedent. If the antecedent is plural, the pronoun that refers to it must also be plural. So Karen and Logan walked their horses around the track. Karen and Logan are the antecedent for their, therefore we have to use the plural pronoun. Now let's take a look at a sentence that contains a pronoun-antecedent agreement error. A student who enrolls in an art class must provide their own supplies. All right, we have the pronoun their, but take a look at the antecedent, a student. The problem is their, the pronoun is plural, while the antecedent, a student, is singular. So to fix it, we can change either the antecedent or the pronoun. So let's look at the two options. First of all, the plural option for correcting this error. So instead of a student, let's use students who enroll. In an art class must provide their own art supplies. Or we have a singular option. We'll keep a student who enrolls in an art class must provide, now we have to choose singular pronouns here. And since we don't know whether the student could be male or female, we're going to use both the masculine singular and the feminine singular pronouns to refer back to a student. Let's take another look at a pronoun antecedent agreement error. Studies show that if a person quits smoking, they can add years to their life. Now, the sentence may sound okay, but upon closer examination, we see the pronoun they here and there. These pronouns both refer to a person, which is our antecedent. So we're going to have to fix either the antecedent, a person, or we're going to have to change the two plural pronouns and make them singular. So let's start with the singular option this time. Studies show that if a person quits smoking, he or she can add years to, now we have to switch to the possessive, his or her life. Or we have the plural option. Studies show that if people quit smoking, then we can keep the plural they, can add years to their lives. So either option is okay. You'll notice the second one, the plural option, is not as wordy because we're not having to use the masculine and feminine singular pronouns, which makes it a little bit wordy and sometimes a little more challenging to keep up with. All right, now let's talk about a special group of words that can be a little tricky as antecedents. They're called indefinite pronouns. Now, indefinite pronouns are always singular. Indefinite pronouns include all the one words like one, anyone, everyone, someone. Notice they all end with one. Or body words. Nobody, anybody, everybody, somebody. Notice these endings, one and body, are singular. Plus we have each, either, and neither. Here's an incorrect sentence. Somebody left their bag in class. The problem is somebody is the antecedent and somebody is singular. There is plural. So to correct it, we need to change the pronoun there to her, or if we thought it was a man or a woman, we could say his or her. Remember to pay attention to the gender of the pronouns that you use. Take a look at this example. Everyone in the club must pay his dues next week. Obviously, all the members of the club are male. But if everyone in the club was a woman, obviously you would choose her. If the club included both men and women, the pronouns would be his or her dues. As in, everyone in the club must pay his or her dues next week. It can get cumbersome to write his or her, he or she, over and over in a sentence. So if you dislike that, as I do, I would highly recommend changing your antecedents to plural as much as possible. As in this last example, club members must pay their dues next week. It's a lot easier to manage than the singular pronouns when it's possible. Let's choose the correct pronoun in these sentences. Neither of the potential buyers had really made up her or their mind. The antecedent is neither, so we're going to have to choose her as the correct pronoun because her is the only singular option, and neither is singular as an antecedent. Not one of the new cashiers knows what he or they should be doing. The antecedent is one. Therefore, we have to choose he as the only correct pronoun to refer back to one because one is singular, therefore we have to choose the singular pronoun he. Obviously, all of the cashiers would be male. Each of these computers has its or their drawbacks. Now, This is a little tricky, but remember, computers is not our antecedent. Our antecedent is each. Each is singular, so its would be the correct pronoun choice here. Anyone trying to reduce his or her or their salt intake should avoid canned and processed foods. Anyone is our antecedent. Notice the one, which makes it singular, so his or her would be the correct choice for the pronouns here. If anybody calls when I'm out, tell him or them I'll return in an hour. So anybody is the antecedent here, so we have to choose him as the only correct choice since it is singular, referring back to the singular antecedent. Okay, let's try a few more. How would we correct these pronoun antecedent agreement errors in these sentences? Anyone can be successful in school if they make the right choices. I hope you notice right off the bat, anyone is singular, but they is plural. I really like trying to go with plural wherever possible. So instead of anyone, I would probably put students in place of that so I can keep my plural they later on. Each person must take responsibility for the quality of their own life. Each person is singular, but there is plural. So we have an error here. We could make it plural and say people must take responsibility for the quality of their own lives, or we could say each person must take responsibility for the quality of his or her and keep it singular. Either way is correct. Let's try another one. If a person wants to become a high school history teacher, they should major in secondary education. Gosh, this is such a common error. We start out with a person, and before we know it, we've switched over to using the plural pronoun to refer back to it. So probably change a person to people, and we're going to have to drop the S off of the verb so that it agrees with our new subject. If people want to become a high school history teacher or high school history teachers, they should major in secondary education, and now we fixed it. College students wanting to be cryptologists need to study math, and he or she also must be good at solving puzzles and creating and breaking codes. Well, this is a pretty easy fix. We have students here as our plural antecedent this time, and strangely, a shift to a singular pronouns here. So easy fix, just get rid of those and substitute the plural they so it now agrees with students. Couple more. Anybody who wants to be a firefighter will need to be in top physical condition to pass their physical examination. Hope you notice right off the bat, anybody is singular, there is plural. If we want to keep it singular, we can say anybody who wants to be a firefighter will need to be in top physical condition to pass his or her physical exam. And then we have a student who wants to study in the field of biomedical engineering should be prepared to spend his college years taking chemistry, biology, anatomy, and engineering classes. Well, we could easily just add his or her right here so that we can make sure that we include both men and women in the field of biomedical engineering, or we can change the antecedent to students, get rid of the S on want. Students who want to study should be prepared to spend there. Always like to go plural where possible. It's just easier to manage. All right, and to sum up, tips to avoid pronoun antecedent agreement errors. Use plural references to people whenever possible. It gets us into trouble when we start out sentences with a student, a person, an employee, a writer. Go with plural as much as you can because it can help us to avoid having to deal with his or her, he or she throughout a paragraph or an essay. And we can use they, them, and their as much as we need to if we use plural antecedents. So, one last question. What should you change in this sentence to make the pronouns easier to manage? A student who wants to work outdoors should choose to be a fish and game warden, but they should be prepared to major in wildlife management. Okay, hope you noticed right off the bat, a student singular, they plural. Let's change a student to students who want to work outdoors. And we've got it fixed. Good luck.